He's Steve Sands, great reporter for the Golf Channel, and he joins us now. Are you in London, Steve?
I am, Dan.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Del Negro?
No. You know what? Let's start with Sergio Garcia, and then we'll work our way to Vinny Del Negro if you want to. All right, so the event last night that you hosted, what was it for?
It's the Players Awards Dinner. The European Tour does it every year. This is the equivalent, Dan, for those in America who are golf fans. The Players Championship is the flagship event on the PGA Tour. This is the flagship event for the European Tour. So every year on Tuesday, they honor the players with their Players Awards Dinner. It's a black tie affair. It's a very, very, very nice evening.
What was the setting like, the mood?
Festive. Everybody's, there's wine on the table. There are cocktails on the table. Everybody is having a good time. Like I said, it's a black tie affair. It's a very elegant night. All the players are there. I mean, they wish they could do this back in the United States, Dan, but they're afraid I don't think that the players would all show up. I mean, every player was there. They honored Ernie Els for winning the Open Championship, Rory McIlroy for being the European Tour Player of the Year, winning the PGA Championship. They also honored all 12 members of the European Victorious Ryder Cup team from Medina. They were all there. Jose Maria Olazabal. I mean, you name it, they're here, Dan. It's a big, big night for the European Tour.
Was Sergio slated to be interviewed by you?
Yes, he was part of the winning Ryder Cup team. So what we did, or not we, I only emceed the event. It's their event. What they decided to do was they decided to bring all 12 players up onto the stage. Prior to that, they had Jose Maria Olazabal, the captain, come on stage. They have videos. You've done these things a million times, and beautiful videos, and it's a really nice evening like that. And all 12 players knew that they were going to be asked a question. All 12 players had a microphone on stage, and I went, back and forth with every single player.
What did you think you were going to get when you asked that question to Sergio about having him over for dinner?
I thought he was going to answer with the very first part of his answer, which was very funny and got a very big laugh from the crowd. It was the second part of his answer.
Well, what was the first part, Steve?
Well, if you don't mind, give me 60 seconds. I'll tell you exactly what happened. I was at a table with Gonzalo Fernandez Castaño, a Spaniard who was very good friends with Sergio, and he was one of the people at my table. And he had just told me a story that he and Sergio are going to rent a house at Marion in a couple of weeks when the U.S. Open is played in Philadelphia. And we were joking. And I go, I bet you, I wonder if they're going to have Tiger over for dinner. And Gonzalo was like, we were just laughing about it. And in a funny way, in a joking way. Obviously, with what's gone on back and forth with Tiger and Sergio, he's not going to have him over for dinner. So we joked around with a lot of players. I mean, with Rory McIlroy, Dan, we joked around. What's the real story behind why you were so late to Sunday at Medina at the Ryder Cup when you were only there 11 minutes before your tee time? And he jokingly said, wouldn't you love to know? And, it was that kind of night. It's that kind of evening. So when I asked Sergio, gave him the whole background. I'm with Gonzalo Fernandez Castaño. You're going to be renting a house. Everybody knows in the world of golf, especially in that room, Dan, where there's 600 people all in the golf industry, whether TV or sponsorship or players or caddies, that kind of stuff. You and Gonzalo are going to be sharing a house together in Marion in a couple of weeks for the U.S. Open. What night are you going to have Tiger over for dinner? The whole place laughed. And you've been in a situation before, you think you're going to say something funny, but you never know unless they laugh. I'm not a comedian. And everybody laughed. Well, the players all laughed. Sergio laughed. Everybody laughed. And the first part of his response was, we're going to have him over every single night. And everybody laughed again. Mm-hmm. Everybody laughed. Everybody was having a good time. And then he paused for a half a second or a second and then said what he said. And that's, that's the remark that everybody remembers.
What was the reaction of the crowd when he said that?
I would say, Dan, it was probably half nervous laughter, half nervous gasping. It was like, oh, but there was also some laughter in there. And, on this side of the Atlantic, Dan, that phrase that Sergio used doesn't have the same connotation that it has in the United States. So I think it was a mixed reaction.
Well, what's the connotation?
From the crowd.
What's the connotation in Europe?
It's not for me to say because I'm from America and I know what the connotation is. But Over here, I think you got kind of a little bit of laughter and kind of a little bit of gasping because I think everybody knows you can't say that. And really nobody knew how to react, I think. So that's why you had that split reaction from, the nervous kind of, whoa, laughter and then the gasping, if you will, the kind of room, the air getting sucked out of the room kind of thing.
But, Steve, of all the food groups he could pick, now he can say he's naive. Maybe it's a different meaning, a connotation in Europe to say something like that. But of all the food groups, he's going to say fried chicken. And it has
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm just telling you what it was like in the room. That's all.
Did he apologize in the moment?
He did not apologize on the stage. The dinner, the conclusion of the evening, it's about a 3.5 hour night of honoring all these different things. Yeah. The Ryder Cup meaning the most, so it was the last thing. As soon as it was done, everybody was talking about it, and everybody realized it, and then Sergio put out a statement shortly after that.
How much had he been drinking?
None. He was perfectly sober.
Sergio, he was. Okay.
I'm sorry? Sergio
was sober.
Oh, yeah. There was nobody's out there getting plastered or anything like that, Dan. It's too elegant of an evening. It's not, like your crazy Uncle Joe at a wedding getting hammered and, doing stupid things on the dance floor. It's not like that.
What reaction do you expect from the PGA Tour?
By the way, I apologize to your Uncle Joe if you have one.
I know. I was going to bring that up. My Uncle Joe is happy you mentioned him on the radio. Thank you.
Yeah, my Uncle Sidney is happy that I didn't say him. So anyway, what was that?
Reaction from the PGA Tour. What do you think it'll be?
Well, that was interesting, Dan. Tim Finchem, when I tell you there's some big people in the room as far as golf is concerned, I'm telling you the biggest names in the game. Peter Dawson just made the announcement on the anchored stroke ban. He's the director of the R&A. Tim Finchem, the commissioner of the PGA Tour, was in attendance. Pete Bavacqua, the CEO of the PGA of America. There's some heady people in there. And Finchem was going to fly home this morning after having breakfast, I believe, with George O'Grady, who is his counterpart on the European Tour. He's what we would call the commissioner. Here they call him the chief executive. But instead, they met and then waited for Sergio's Pro-Am to finish. He teed off at 8 o'clock, finished around 12:30 local time. That's 7:30 Eastern time. And then they had a private meeting where Sergio apologized. There will be no disciplinary action by the European Tour or the PGA Tour. You could have had that scenario, Dan, with falling under the category of that conduct unbecoming, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But Finchem did meet with him, and George O'Grady did meet with him, and they sorted it all out. And that preceded his public apology on camera, which you may or may not have seen live on Golf Channel a little bit earlier.
Does the U.S. Open have a sense of humor in their pairings?
Well, they always have, and we were talking about that last week at the Players. Dan, did you and I speak at the Players? I don't think we spoke on the radio at the Players, but they were talking about it after what Sergio said on Saturday. Wouldn't that be a phenomenal first and second round pairing, Sergio and Tiger and whoever else the third person in the group would be? But they do have a good sense of humor, and they've done stuff like that before, but I don't think they're going to try it this time.
Well, I think it's a little too volatile, and it
correct. I agree.
Then it does impact the players trying to play golf. That there's more to it. So I understand. It's like when the NCAA tournament comes out. You'll get a coach who coached at a place, and then they'll play against one another or former rivals. I think this is a little too front burner. That you're going to have these guys in a couple of weeks at a major, and that you're going to be playing with emotions there. I think that's probably going above and beyond.
And you know what else, Dan, and you know this because you've been around golf plenty. I think golf likes to think of itself as, they can put humorous groupings together, but they also like to think of themselves with a higher decorum than, say, some of the other sports. Sometimes the NFL schedules differently. Sometimes, like you said, the NCAA tournament does that. I remember years ago being a D.C. guy, Maryland and Georgetown hated each other. They never used to play. Lefty Driesell and John Thompson never played. What'd they do? They put them in the same, same brackets out in Boise, Idaho, and they ended up meeting. So, that kind of thing. But I think golf, Mike Davis, the USGA, the last thing they want to do is take away from the event. And I think putting cool groups together never does that. But if they did that this time with these two guys, it would take away from the day's event.
Safe travels back from London. Always good to talk to you, Steve. Thank you.
Dan, be good, bud.
All right, Steve Sands from the Golf Channel hosted the event last night.